Welcome. God bless you. It's good to be with you this month. I made reference to this last week. I said 4 messages. I've reduced them to 3 messages on trusting God because I'd like to take the 24th, Christmas Eve is on a Sunday, and I'd like to do a message on the great mystery of the Incarnation, something we should never get over. In Ephesians 3 and verse 8 and 9 it says, "Unto me," Paul is writing to this church, it says, "Unto me, who am less than the least of all saints, is this grace given, that I might preach among the Gentiles the unsearchable riches of Christ, and to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the ages hath been hidden in God, who created all things by Jesus Christ." When he wrote to Timothy in 1 Timothy 3:15, he says, or 16, he says, "Without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness." And Paul says, now in this church age, we get the privilege of making known what is the mystery, the fellowship of the mystery, which had been hidden in God from creation. But now it's revealed unto us. The Incarnation. I look forward to speaking on that. I'm always blessed and encouraged of the greatness of God and His plan and what He has done. Well, to take off with these messages, the word trust means the same in Greek and in Hebrew. It means to put confidence in, to make your hope with an implication that actions will follow with a looking forward to what is good and beneficial. I have expectations. It's that what God has in store for us. Jeremiah 29:11, "I know the thoughts that you think to me, thoughts of good and not of evil, to give me hope and an expected end." And we can trust in a God who has that in His mind. Trust me, to put confidence in Him with a hope. The English dictionary, I looked it up just to see what's our take on this. And it means this: integrity of another. So you're going to trust in someone other than yourself. You're trusting in another in their integrity. It means consistency without a flaw. When you stop and think of metal, sometimes they said, oh, the integrity of that metal is, you can trust that. There's without flaw. There's no imperfections in it. It doesn't change. Malachi 3:6 says, "I am the Lord, I change not." The integrity is in Hebrews chapter 13 verse 8 says that I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's integrity. That's something you can put your confidence, or someone you can put your confidence in. Another word they used to describe, an adjective that would describe trusting, was veracity. Not a word I use maybe ever, but veracity. It's a good word. It means habitual observance of truth. In Deuteronomy 32:4 it says, "He is the rock, His work is perfect, for all His ways are justice, a God of truth, without iniquity, just and right is He." The habitual observance of truth. It's not one truth for this person, another truth for this person. Truth is truth, and it's one of those things that are characteristic of God Himself, making Him trustworthy. John 17:17, and Jesus is praying for His disciples. He asks the Father, says, "Would you sanctify them through your truth? Your word is truth." What they had for truth at that time was the Old Testament only, not knowing that some of these men would be penning, writing Holy Scriptures, the truth, their confidence in the truth. When the disciples were struggling with Jesus, getting ready to leave and do a work that they didn't understand yet, and He said, "I'm going away and you can't go." He said, "Why can't we go? We don't know where you're going. How are we going to know the way?" And Jesus said in John 14:6, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life." The personification of truth is the person and work of Jesus Christ. Another word that describes trust would be justice, which means impartiality. There's equal distribution of right which the law demands. There's not a right and a truth or a law or justice for presidents and kings and leaders of government. And then another set of rules, justice for the common man like us. It's the same. Before God, there's no respecter of persons. Kings are going to bow before him, the one who is in fact the God of justice. You might ask yourself, what does the law demand? It demands perfection. You can't do anything under the law and keep the law that's less than perfect. It demands perfection. And the only thing that meets that demand is the grace of God. We cannot be perfect in and of ourselves. Romans 8:32 and 33, how just is God? Everybody ought to ask themselves that question. How serious is God about justice? How just is he? In verse 33 it says, who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? Shall God who justifieth? You know what that means? Is God going to justify a person according to the law and then find a problem with how he did it? Verse 32 it says, he spared not his own son, but delivered him up for us all. You know how just God is? When the Son of God himself took upon himself your sin and mine, it was so that justice would be served, so that God could show mercy. Because justice had been served. He says, trust in this God. That's what trust, it incorporates these truths about God. Well, now the practical or the practice of trusting God, this God who is just. I need to drum roll this, and I don't really know how to do it enough, but it is a conscious choice. Trusting God is intentional. It's an act of our will. In Job 13, verse 15, Job said this, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. What a statement. He's choosing. If you know anything about Job, by the time you get to 13, the bottom has fallen out of his life here. And he says, if he takes my life, I'm still going to trust him. I will trust him. David said, when he was fleeing from Saul, found himself in Gath. Goliath was from Gath. He had killed their champion. He's in the town of the Philistines, and he's fearful. They know who he is. Here's what he said, Psalms 56:3, what time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. It was an act of his will. I mean, there wasn't anything else he could trust. Couldn't trust in himself. He couldn't trust the people he was with. And he made a conscious choice. I will trust in God. And what time I am afraid, somehow we have allowed into our theology that Christians are never fearful, or that Christians never struggle with doubts and concerns of life or trouble. That's a false assumption. We have trouble. In this life we're going to have tribulation and trouble. Paul said, I'm troubled on every side. Job said, man who was born of woman is a few days and full of trouble. But he said, when I'm in those kinds of times, I'm going to make a conscious choice and act in my will. Intentionally, I will trust in you, David said. In Psalms 118, verses 8 and 9, it says this, it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. The next verse says, it's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in a prince, or meaning the best of men. You're better off just to trust the Lord. Psalms 20 and verse 7, some trust in horses. Excuse me, I think this one says, some trust in chariots, and some trust in horses. But we will trust in the name of the Lord our God. Isaiah 31, listen to these verses. Verse 1, woe to those who go down to Egypt for help and rely on horses and trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. But they look not to the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Verse 3, now the Egyptians are men and not God, and their horses are flesh and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is helped shall fall down, and they shall all fail together. Trust in God. You're not going to fail. Trust him. There's a temptation for us to trust him. We get our horses and our chariots all together. There's another one said in 1 Timothy 6:17, the things that we have a tendency to trust. Trust the government. Ooh, that takes a lot of faith. Trust in ourselves and our ability to how we're going to deal with things. Now, you're better off trusting in the Lord. 1 Timothy 6:17, it says, charge them that are rich in this age, not to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us all things freely to enjoy. Trust in God. Trust in God. Well, as I draw this brief drum rolling, it's an act of your will. You choose. It's like thankfulness and trust are good friends. They go together. Boy, that is a 1-2 punch in our Christian life, moving us out of wherever we're at to where God wants us to be. They are good friends. And being thankful is an act of our will. We choose to be thankful. We choose to be grateful. When you choose to be thankful and choose to trust God at the same time, and trusting God is evidence, thanking God is evidence of trusting God. In all things, in everything, trusting God. Well, here, as I draw this to a close, Isaiah 12:2 says this, God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. For the Lord, even the Lord, is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. Therefore, with joy will I draw water from the wells of my salvation. It is a conscious choice. Proverbs 3:5 and 6, a verse many believers know, and one we all need to embrace as an act of our will. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him consciously. It is a good practice to say to God regularly, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you in this. Not just when things are going well. I'm trusting you this time. In a world that seems to be unraveling, who are you trusting? We're trusting something. I'm trusting you. And say it consciously and mean it from your heart. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. Another one of those things, trusting in riches or trusting in horses or trusting in chariot or trusting in men. No. Trust in God. Don't lean on your own understanding. Don't trust your ability to figure things out. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your paths. I've been singing this song. It's an old hymn. And it goes like this, if I can remember it. Simply trusting every day. Simply trusting every day. Trusting through the stormy way. Trusting when my faith is small. Trusting Jesus, that is all. Trusting as the moments fly. Trusting as the days go by. Trusting him whate'er befall. Trusting Jesus, that is all. Too simple. Can I tell you something? That is something God longs for us to do. Not so he'll become better, so that we will become better. Our confidence will not be in all the things that we see, but in a God who loves us, who's given us his word, and says, you can trust me. Well, now unto him who is able to keep us from falling and to present us faultless before the throne of his glory with exceeding joy. To him be glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and forever. God bless you. Keep trusting.